I'm Dave.
And I'm Dallas.
Together we are your Wino Windbags.
We have opinions on all things media and entertainment. Sometimes they're on point, sometimes they go down easier with a glass of wine.
We know you want some, so come get some. Welcome back, everybody, to Wine and, the show where we pair wine with movies, TV, music, books, and comics, not necessarily in that order. Most of the time we talk about things we love. Sometimes we dissect something that we hate. But whatever it is you love, whatever it is you hate, there is a wine that pairs with that. Sometimes we even have guests on from any or all of those industries, and today's special guest is Kate Reuschel, a wine creative, writer, and educator who specializes in Portuguese wine. She writes the Substack Survives on Wine, which is where I discovered her. She comes from a 15-plus year career in the fashion design industry, and she continues to practice visual art over on her Substack, where she creates wine infographics and creates visual wine tasting notes. Go listen to part 1 of this episode to find out what all the details of what all those things are, because sometimes our guest talks so much that we have to split an episode into 2 parts, which is what we had to do here. Thanks, Kate. So this is part 2 of our episode on Gotan Project's debut album, La Revancha del Tango, or Revenge of the Tango. Make sure to go back and listen to part 1, where we discuss all things Kate and Portuguese wine, the details of the band and this album in particular, and cover tracks 1 through 4. Today's episode will be covering tracks 5 through 11, and then, finally, the wine pairings. Let's get to it. All right,
Totally.
Track number 5, Santa Maria del Buen Aire, or Buenos Aires, Our Lady of the Good Air. Kate, what do you think about this one coming out of Triptych?
So I think it's actually, I think a lot of people might think it's not the right song to go afterwards, but I totally understand why they put it after. For me, it's like, okay, you've just gotten out of this really, really cool jam session where you're kind of just in your chair, and then you have Christina, I'll probably butcher her last name, Villalonga, but her vocals are just seductive and sultry in this song. And there's not a lot of them, but she's almost like calling you in for a march, like calling you in to pay attention. So because you can kind of lose yourself in the jam before, and her vocals just brings it back to the fold for me to be like, okay, I need to come back. Yeah. Let's refocus. Like, let me get into this. And it's more of a march to me. And I don't know. I feel like you have your more traditional tango vibes coming out. She's kind of bringing that old school, what you think tango should sound like.
Exactly.
And she's bringing that to the fold. And okay, you guys are going to laugh at me for this, but when I hear this song, I picture Morticia and Gomez Adams in a wine cave doing the most seductive, sultry tango dance ever. And that to me, that is this song for me. So I just love it.
Buenos Aires.
Okay, so yes, to your point, right? So they're referencing in this song Milonga, which is often referred to as the mother of tango, where tango has sort of seduction at its kind of core. Milonga's rhythms are less sensual, for lack of a better term. And I think you're right. It is sort of pulling the viewer, the listener, back to the sort of core of this work, which is tango. And good note. Good note.
I agree. I think her vocals, while track number 2 I was overly lulled by them, this one it's perfect. It's like it's exactly what the song needs. It makes it play, and it does have this much more, I think, coming out of Triptych. I agree with you with the placement on the album. I think this song might not have played as well for me if it was elsewhere, but coming out of that massive experimental instrumental and then hitting this song, which is so very straightforward tango-y, where much more mainstream, much more traditionally, this is a song that has been sampled and used on like multiple movies, The Bourne Identity, Shall We Dance? So, and I can see why it's so mainstream popular, because here it is, like, if you're a movie and you're like, we want that tango feel, it's like, this is just giving you the tango feel, you know, and it's like, here it is, straightforward. We're not mucking with it too much. We're just giving it to you straight up on a platter. And then here are these very seductive vocals to go with it. Yeah. And it is this nice palate cleanser coming out of, I think, things like a Zappa cover and an 8.5 minute instrumental, where you're just like straightforward, simple, to the point, but very well done. Right. So yeah, I think on its placement on the album, this is a perfect placement, and it does it for me every time. Yeah.
Yay.
All right. Track 6, Una Musical Brutal, or Brutal Music.
Descubrimos vos y yo en el triste carnaval una música brutal, melodías de dolor.
Kate, what do we think of this?
It's my favorite on the album. Ooh. It's my favorite. Yeah, I know. I figured I might shock some people. It's my favorite. I know. I'm a weird girl.
But listening to the way you described your connection to the album, that makes sense, actually.
Okay. I'm glad.
I can see that. Yeah.
So this one starts more like, I love how it follows the Santa Maria, because it also starts as a traditional tango.
Yes.
But then you get into some dub beats and dance beats, and it gets funky, and and the sultry vocals like come in and out, and to me this is the one that, for me, I can see how they have totally been able to blend traditional tango with dance, dub, and really great vocals that don't, that aren't the centerpiece, like, because those vocals are not meant to be front and center, and they just do an excellent job of melding that. And for me, this is the one that's like, I get why you have kind of reinvented tango in your own way. So for me, this is my favorite.
All right.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's they are my fave vocals on the album.
Okay.
I think the way she does them, they're so crooning and wispy, very evocative. Like, she's doing her most, like, not just sultry, but like there's something else to the tenor and what she's putting into the lyrics. There's less of them, but when she comes in, I mean, they're very very purposeful, and they're giving a lot of extra feeling to the song. And then those awesome club beats while still having that old school bandoneon playing. You're just like, what the am I listening to? But it is great, and I do think you're right, coming off of I think when I would not pay attention to what track I was on, when I would just listen to the album straight through as an album, I thought track 5 and track 6 were the same track. Like, they were leading into each other.
Yeah.
And because of that, how traditional tango-y it is, but then this one pushes it to this new place. And I would just think it was the second half of the song. And looking at it now, I'm like, oh, it does stop and then start again. And it's a new track. Oh, shit. But yeah, that's my take, Dallas.
Similar. I do like this one because it does start with that. It leads you, like I said, the previous song it sort of bookends or leads into the song, and then they drop the needle, so to speak, with sort of with the dub sort of treatment. And it's fun. This is the song, if I were in some French salon enjoying this album, this is the song after 3 or 4 glasses of wine I'd probably jump up and just start dancing to. So yeah, I get it. It's a great song. Great
Cool. All right, track number 7, El Capitalismo Foráneo, The Foreign Capitalism. This is an original composition by classic bandoneon player and composer Avelino Flores, father to the album's bandoneon player Nini Flores. Sad, both of them have passed away since, sadly. But Nini, actually, the father outlived the son, tragically. I know. Nini passed away at the age of 50 in 2016, while his father, born in 1934, outlived him until 2018.
Wow.
Both by natural causes. I think Nini passed away in like a hotel room from heart failure, a heart attack, something of that nature. But one half, and this was one half of that first single that was released prior to the album. So that click, click, bump, bump, tick, 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 little bump, bump beat plays throughout both of them, even though the songs are very different beyond that. But I love that beat. I love both songs that contain that beat. This one, I love this song. This might be a contender for my second favorite on the album. I have not fully decided what my second favorite is, but this is definitely a very close contender for what that might be. But Kate, what do you think?
I think it's a great song. For me, it has a lot of grit. They add in that background noise where I can, at some point it sounds like just street noise. Sometimes it sounds like a dog barking. I mean, whatever that track, whatever they recorded outside.
Okay. Yes. The dog. Yes. Can I just say, every time I listen to this fucking track, I think it's a real dog in my neighborhood. So I look out my window to find where that damn barking is coming from. If I'm walking down the street, I'm like, is someone about to pass me with their dog and the dog's going ape shit? And I'm like, I need to get out of the way. And it's like, the way they recorded that dog, I'm like, I will say, I like F this track for that. It does get me every single time. I forgot about it again. Dave. Until you brought it up. I forgot about it.
Here's a note
it gets
about
me
that,
every
guys.
time.
Here's a note about that. So, in terms of the production of this song, they finished the first draft of the song, and it just wasn't right. So he went to take a walk. And while they were out walking, he said he had the song blasting in the headphones, and he heard the street noises. So this is the quote. But the same thing happened to that song. Something was missing until one day I was walking down the street listening to it on the Walkman. When I heard the street noise coming through, the music, a dog barking, a train passing, it sounded fantastic. So I recorded these sounds and mixed them into the song. So that's why they're there.
So that's why they're there, and that's why they sound like street sounds. They sound like they're happening around. The way they mixed them too is like this echoey. It feels like you need to, like, I take the earbud out every time, and then I'm like, oh god damn it, yeah.
I think that's I love it, and for me that's it. Out of all the songs, this one has such a street feel, and I think that's why they put it in there. The music feels a little more street. There's a little more dance vibes, or it's more gritty than all the others. You still have that beautiful like tango in there, but it's grittier. And I think actually if I didn't have those street noises, it probably wouldn't sound finished. It wouldn't.
Agreed.
There would be something missing, and I wouldn't ever have a clue that it would need to be street noises. So I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So track number 8, Last Tango in Paris, which is a cover of the Last Tango in Paris by Gato Barbieri. What are our thoughts on this one?
All right. So I love it because it has the most UK grime and dubstep feel to the beats.
It does.
Right?
It really does.
So it takes me back to, happy times recording with artists like that. But I think for me, it's another cover that has totally blown the original away. I know that's probably just my opinion. I know but when this song transports me to like the Riviera, I've never been to Argentina, or it would probably transport me there, but to like the Riviera, sipping on my wine, just watching the world go by and just being like, life is good.
Nice. Yeah, no, agreed. This one, it's so, you're right. It has that UK kind of grit to it. It's loungy. It's fun. It's it's moody, and it seems very, I would say it seems very sort of nouveau French kind of nouveau lounge.
Yes.
So
yeah. I agree. Very loungy. So when I first listened to the album, this was the track I kept wanting to skip. Originally.
Interesting. Okay.
And it wasn't number 2, and somewhere down the line it shifted. And now this one, I think it comes at a perfect time again, coming out of the previous track. I do like it better. I went, and it's been a long time since I'd heard the original Last Tango in Paris. So I listened to it when preparing for this podcast, and I was like, oh yeah, this one's much better. Like this one on this album, I'm like, that original probably works really well in the movie and for the time and all that fun stuff. Yeah. But I'm like, as a song that you just listen to as a song, this is the one you want to listen to. It's great. So agree with everything. Track 9, La del Russo, or The Russian. What do we think, Kate?
Okay, so the way the beat starts the song, I just love that. It leads you right into it's almost like a march.
It's almost a full. It actually is a full minute of percussion before any other instrument comes in.
It's insane, but for some reason, usually like by second 30, I would be dropped off. But there is a steady crescendo happening in it, and then you get this like sensual vibe. There's the dubstep. There's just the way I don't know, the way the whole song then becomes super vibrant and super sensual for me. It just draws me in. The dissonance on this track is just, I love it. There's something about the dissonance is almost perfect for me. It really, I don't know, it just melds so well for me. think a lot of people probably skip this song because of the beat taking so long to get to like the next step, right?
Right.
But I think it progresses enough for me. It progresses quick enough into like the next kind of
Right.
dubstep nod, and then into the dissonance, and I don't know. I think it's fantastic.
I will agree. I think that I think by the time you're this deep into the album, an album that is predominantly instrumental, most people are probably along for the ride at this point.
Yeah.
They're not questioning
Yeah.
things as much by track 9. Like if this was
Right.
track 2, you might be pushing things, but by
Yeah.
track 9, you're just sort of like, And they do know, as we've mentioned on a lot of other tracks already, that they know how to build. They
Mhm.
know how to layer things in a way that seems so natural, even though once again, when I take like a midday walk that's like 45 minutes long. And so whenever there's an album that I need to listen to prepare for this, I will do that then. And often that was the first time I looked down, I must have listened to this album 3 or 4 times. And it was maybe the 4th time that I finally was like, when the other instruments came in, I was like, how long was that? And I looked down and it was like 101,
yeah.
and I was like, whoa, but you coast with it. It does have this beautiful build. And I think when I realized that this title translated as the Russian, that made a lot of sense in that quote unquote dissonance, because it has that Eastern European feel. There's that a little bit of element of how that beat comes in, and it's different from all the other tracks on the album. So I think that's a great reprieve, especially coming off of Last Tango in Paris, which we just had a bunch of tracks outside of Capitalismo, which were a bit more traditional tango feeling.
Yeah.
And then this one, completely different, and we needed that. And whatever is making that little sound effect, love that. It's such a great little accent to the whole thing that it's just like this is a great track.
I have no idea what makes that
I don't know.
sound.
I'm like, is it an instrument? Is it someone?
I don't know.
I can't tell. I cannot tell.
I think this song in particular is the right song at the right time. And what it does is it reaffirms my belief that these guys have a mastery of musical and classical structure. What they managed to do in this particular song, which is the next to the last song, right? Yeah, next to the last song. What they managed to do in this song is take you through all the other textures that they've already established in one song, and briefly move you through all the movements, sort of many of the themes, and sort of give you one almost, it's not quite a coda, but it is sort of a reframing, a sort of a reorganization of all the textures that they've kind of pulled you through in one song. And that's, I think, where the dissonance comes from. I think that's where the what's my note here? What's the note? Yeah, it's the reason it feels like your ear can never get quite a hold on the song, at least for me, which is, again, what I enjoy. It's the best use of these blended sort of styles. It is the exact opposite of pop music, in my opinion, the song. And I appreciate it immensely because they are taking you on a ride, and before they land the plane, it seems as if they felt the need to kind of not give you an overview, but give you, in the same way the first song was sort of the amuse-bouche, they're giving you sort of what would be the culinary parallel to this? Can't think of it. Anyway, a sort of a tasting platter, a reconnection to everything they've given you throughout the song. And before they land this sort of the plane, again, I mixed the hell out of metaphors here. That's part of the fun.
I love that. I love it.
But I do think this is my second favorite song, a piece on movement. I can't even call it a song. Second favorite movement in this larger work, an entire album. So yeah, I like this one immensely.
I can see that. I mean, I had this, I think, for a long time was my favorite on the album. And I think I've slowly changed a little bit. But yeah, I mean, this song kind of just brings it all home.
Yeah.
It's a really, I think they did something that I couldn't imagine doing as a musician,
Right,
but, you know,
right.
getting it right. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we'll talk about the official final track on the album that closes out the album, though there is one bonus track that we will talk about as well that has come out since. But for the official final track, Vuelvo al Sur, I Return to the South, this is the second part of that first single that they put out. Actually, the first part of that first single that they put out. But now it's closing the album. This is a cover of an Astor Piazzolla, who's another bandoneon player, song, first half of the band, and first half of that single. So, Kate, what do you think of this as a song itself and as a closer?
okay, as a song itself, I think it's really interesting. I get why they did it. And it's a nod to, I mean, the most famous Argentinian tango artist. So I love
Right.
that they did that. It's interesting because it's not my favorite song on the album, but I get why they used it as a closer. It kind of brings everything together. You've got you almost got some pop kind of hints in it, which is weird because I'm not a super pop fan, but I like it. And you get the jazz, you get the tango, you get the nods to the dubstep and the electronic music. But I think what makes it a whole for me is the vocals. I think they're haunting. And I don't know, there's something that if I go back to the first song and where are my notes on the first song? Like where you get that like independence, the peace, you know, there's a reason you're about to listen. They're trying to say something, but they're also not taking a stand. Her voice closing it out in that hauntingly beautiful way, I think it's enough. It's like that's okay. You can end right there. You don't need any more.
Vuelvo al sur, como se vuelve siempre al amor. Vuelvo a vos, con mi deseo, con mi temor. Llevo el sur, como un destino del corazón. Soy del sur, como los aires del bandoneón.
Dallas.
Yeah. I think this particular song, to my ear, it starts the most traditionally tango. It begins the most traditionally tango, and the song itself, the poetry of the song, is about returning to the South, or going south. And you could take that literally, meaning going to the southern region of Argentina, where a lot of the sort of tango culture can be found. Or even more metaphorically, going from France south to Argentina,
Right.
or and I think it is kind of just the perfect soft landing, actually, for
Yes.
this little excursion that they've taken us on. I think it's the perfect little soft landing.
I think it is such a gentle ending that half the time when the music just stops playing, you're a little surprised. You're just sort of like waiting for the next track to come on, and then it doesn't. Or it's, if you're on a streamer, it suddenly jumps to some radio thing, and you're like, wait, what? That was it? It's over? So I do think as a closer, I prefer the next bonus track we're going to talk about as a finale, if we're going to think of the closer as a finale. But in terms of a gentle closing, you could see this being too gentle, like almost to a fault, because you don't expect it to end. But on the other hand, any closer that just makes you want the album to go again, right? Where you're just sort of like loop that shit. Don't let it end.
Yep.
It's like, I'm ready for it again. Like, I don't want it to stop. That's a success in its own right that most closers do not give you. You're usually ready to take a break and do something else once an album closer if you've just listened to an entire album straight through. And this is one that you could have on loop, repeat ad nauseum, and I don't even know how long it would take for me to actually want to stop it. But let's talk about, there has been the 20th anniversary edition that was recently released did add one bonus track that was part of the original recordings for this album. So it's not a brand new song per se, but Diciembre el 2001 or 2001, which was recorded in December 2001 during the original sessions. And during, as Dallas pointed out at the very beginning, there was a big tumult going on in Argentina at the time. So it is about that. It was reworked a little bit from that original recording to pay a triple tribute. This is a tribute to the 20th anniversary of the record, of course, to the December 2001 riots in Argentina, or the Argentinazo. This was that thing where I don't pretend to know the big details, but there were issues going on with the banks in Argentina, and the government actually stopped people from being able to withdraw their funds from banks. And this caused, I mean, that you want people to riot. You say the money that they put into a government-backed, institution, they're like, and you can't take it out. You have to leave it in there. Yep, go ahead. And then also to the memory of Fernando Pino Solanas, the Argentinian filmmaker, composer, and politician who passed away in 2019 in France due to COVID. So they released this all together as a tribute. And this was a composer who worked with the two of the musicians on this album very frequently. So they knew him. They were friends. He apparently was this really great guy, a great politician. He was an ambassador to Argentina out in France for the UN at the time of his passing. So he was very well admired, very well respected. And so this wound up being a tribute to all of them. And this is a track that has in its background this sort of like, chanting and for power to the people, chanting down with the whatever it is that's happening. I think they are chants that were happening during those 2001 riots. I think that's what is going on in this track. But as a pumping, powerful ending, this does the trick. It is definitely a one last time, power to the people, power to the everything that is the people. Here we go. And it's not even a long track. It's about 3 minutes and change, I think, at most. So, Kate, what do you think of this as a bonus new ender?
So I like it as a bonus. However, I don't like it as a closer. I don't think it's the right one. Because for me, if it was kind of more near El Capitalismo, that song, I think I would appreciate it better because it almost hypes you up too much to end. And
gotcha.
And I don't know. Because I really like the song. I just feel like the placement for me adding it as a bonus, I don't want to end there. I want it to be somewhere else. And I really like ending on the Piazzolla cover. So I think that
if it were me, I would actually put this as a new number 2 track. Ooh, after that very gentle opening. Give us a little pump, and then you get that nice gentle epoca. Yeah, with the vocals, and then so I think that might ebb and flow better.
Okay.
Just off the top of my head, I think I'll have to make a playlist
right.
Figure
that out.
Yeah. Dallas, your thoughts on this bonus track?
This bonus track. Okay. So the album with its original end, I think, is perfectly orchestrated as a work of music, as a work of art. I think if I wanted this album to veer into the territory of political statements. I think this bonus track as the final number would be perfect for a sort of as an actionable moment, because it does have that. Because remember, we're talking about what's happening in Argentina, what's happening in Argentina now, what
Yeah.
happened in Argentina 20 years ago, almost 20 years
Right.
ago. You know, it is sort of a call not to arms, but a call to action. And I think, you know, simply adding this song at the end of this record, remember, you know, these guys have notoriously gone on record and had to go on record for the years to say, look, this isn't a battle cry, this is not a war cry, guys. And I think the reason
And here's a
is,
literal battle cry.
Right,
at
but
the
Yeah,
end of the
right,
record.
but I think the
This is
reason they had
recorded.
to, right, I think the reason they had to defend that is because it really does feel like it's going in that direction with the
Yeah.
themes, with the sort of sonic structure, with everything that's in this album. So adding this new punctuation, I think, just drives that home in a big way. So yeah, I'm of two minds. I think the original, if I'm taking it purely on the musical kind of sort of expression, it's perfect. But if I want to get the people roused and ready to go, and I would add this bonus track. Yeah.
Cool. All right, folks. That is Gotan Project's 2001 La Revancha del Tango. Kate, it is time for the wine pairings on this bad boy. So let's start with you. What do you pair with this album that you love?
Okay, I actually have it with me to show you guys.
Ooh.
So we've got, and I'm probably going to screw up the Portuguese, Desvirttuado. Yeah,
Virtuado,
it's
yes.
Desvirttuado.
Virtuado.
Yep.
It's by Phulia, which they're based in the Vinho Verde. They're based in the Ponte Lima area.
Mhm.
So it's north of Braga.
Mhm.
Anyways, I picked this for a couple of reasons. Obviously, Portugal. Hello. Vinho Verde,
Yep.
one of my favorite regions.
Yeah.
I
Expected
think it's
nothing less.
So this is the word actually translates to distorted or misrepresented. So I kind of there's another reason also I picked this. But it kind of goes with this because this album is distorted tango in a way. You know, it's
Right.
got the dissonance.
Yeah.
It kind of goes against what the normal perception of tango should be, and I love that. So it's almost like it to tie it in. It misrepresented, you know, what tango was. But I love that it broke it down and it added it to so much more. And then this wine is the Loureiro grape, which is native to Portugal, and it's Loureiro. So, so typically this is a grape that goes into your effervescence, Vinho Verde wines that the easy drinking, no frills, great summer drink. However, it's also made into single varietal wines that are fantastic, but it is typically not aged. And I picked this wine because it is aged. And it's 50% in the barrel, 50% in stainless steel. And it was aged on its lees for 12 months. So that is totally not done with this grape by a lot of people, which I thought just made it even better to pick for this because you know you gotta get away from the norm and away from the status quo. It really felt like the right wine to have, like, to pair with this album. So
yeah, thematically it's so on point. And I agree with you, like wine-wise too. It's like, yeah, come on guys, experiment, try.
Do something
don't just
different.
like, have you tried this with this grape before? It's like, so try something, see what happens.
Exactly.
I mean,
like
it's a lot of money to waste, but
it is a lot of money to waste. But you know, to just keep repeating the process, that's not innovative, and that's not going to bring new wine drinkers in. And the future of wine needs to attract the younger generations, and you got to try. So
100%.
I think this wine just did it for me for this album. So yeah.
All right.
Beautiful. All right, Dallas, what do you got?
All right. So I like to dig into the compare and contrast kind of thing when it comes to music pairings, mostly because there's just so much. And when something is particularly complex, I like to counter that with something that is a bit more straightforward. So my wine choice is probably going to be the varietal is probably going to be fairly predictable. And I'm pretty sure Dave probably chose the same thing. If I know Dave, he chose. we have the same region. I'll just say that. And I did. I tried it. I tried to pair this with 3 other varietals, and it just didn't work. How to say this without sounding like an absolute asshole.
There's probably no way.
No,
Go
there
for
isn't.
Just say it.
I wanted something really accessible because I don't think this album is really accessible. It is not
I think you're right.
for every ear. It is not for every palate. It can be, upon secondary, tertiary kind of, listens. Dave, you froze with that face.
Dave did not agree on that.
Yeah, he'll get over it.
Challenge that.
No,
I do think
it's not very accessible. It really isn't. I think there are accessible moments, and I think there are, once you.
And that was Dallas's version of debate,
right?
So in terms of the pairing, I definitely wanted to, if I were recommending this album to someone, to say, go home, have a little listening party on your couch, turn off all the distractions. See if you can get through this bottle of wine. It would be a Malbec, of course. Simply because I think the grape itself is really accessible. For those who don't know, the Malbec has its origins in France, of course, generally around the Cahors. In the late 1800s, the Malbec grape found its new life in Argentina, and there are much of the culture says that Argentina saved Malbec, and that can't really. They make it kind of
delicious Malbec.
And it's true.
And nowhere else really does the same.
Right.
So
Exactly.
they did.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it really kind of did. But I decided to go with, of course, a Mendozan Malbec. And if you guys don't know, Mendoza is the workhorse. It is the core of the Malbec region. I think like 80% of Malbecs out of the region come from Mendoza.
Uco Valley as well.
The valley, exactly. I went with this Vasco Viejo, and I've actually used a different vintage for a previous pairing in our Legacy show. But this is the Vasco Viejo Edición Vintage Malbec from Lopez Bodegas Lopez. It is really wonderfully drinkable. This is a 2020. It is the kind of thing that really just, it's not neutral. Like I said, the tannic structure is medium, so it's there. It requires a little kind of background focus as it opens up. You get the jammy, so that's pleasant. That's the sweet sort of parallel component. You get the coffee. You get all those things that kind of just give you a baseline for this album, and it allows the album to be the kind of sensory star of this pairing. So that, my friends, is my quote-unquote on-the-nose pairing.
I love it.
Now, Dave, tell us what your Malbec is.
I know. I know. I'm like, I knew you guys were going to go. One of you were at least going to go for Malbec, so I was not.
100%. And it took me a while to get back to the Malbec, I will say. 3 other ones.
Okay.
Right. I was going to say, I do think, honestly, that the one alternative to Malbec that I think would work really well with this album that's a red from Argentina is Cabernet Franc. Is the one I would go with, because it's got that, it's a little lighter on its feet, and it's got that bit more savoriness, a bit more of a bite to it, which I think you need with this music. So for me, I thought about Cabernet Franc, but there was a version of Malbec that I decided was even more perfect. So I'm going to contest Dallas. I think this album is accessible as fuck. I think there is a reason that it has done as well. And their second and third album didn't even go over quite to the level that this first one did. I mean, they've done well. They've been popular, especially to the fans of the first album. But the first album continues to just make converts of people when they listen to it. I agree that on paper, this does not sound like an accessible album.
Oh,
when
yeah.
If you go to someone and you're like, would you like to listen to an hour of electronic tango? They're going
that
to
has
say
dissonance
no.
in it.
Right.
It is
That's
not
what I
poppy.
mean by accessible. It isn't the cell on the page. Exactly. Yes.
Right. So if you ask someone like, we're having a party, what do you want the playlist to be? No one's going to agree to electronic tango.
Precisely.
So, but if you listen to the album, like the moment you hear that first song, it worms its way into your head. And I'm not into this style. I would not say that I was into this style of music. So on paper, I'm not the audience. I'm not that person. And yet this album, God, yes. So I think the music itself, if I'm pairing for the music, if you're listening to it, I have to say it's accessible. I have to say, so in a way, easy drinking. I thought about whites. Because there's also an element, or even rosés, because there's an element of the music here. It is light on its feet. You do have to, I want to be on my feet. I want to be moving just a little bit. You know, you got to do a little shake a shake while you're doing, and you want to be almost active while you're listening to this music. So you want to be cooking, you want to be working, you want to be walking. You got to be doing something. It's hard to sit still while listening to the, like completely still. Well, so there is this freshness, this youth, this vigor to the music. And then, of course, I did go with the Malbec, and I did go with Mendoza, I did go with Uca Valley, but I wanted something that could somehow replicate that buoyancy to the music and that youthfulness and that vigor. I needed something that, Malbec, and the reason I even went with Malbec over Cab Franc, I think, is Malbec does have that spiciness to it in a lot of its final, and so you have that, that very authentic, and of course Malbec, it's a French grape from in Argentina. I'm like, it's perfect. I can't get away from it. So what I found, the one I chose is a Zuccardi Concreto, concrete aged Malbec, from 2021. And it is whole cluster fermentation and concrete aged. And this is no epoxy, no coating on the inside of the concrete either. It is pure, unblemished stone that it is being aged in just pure concrete aged. So it is, according to the winemaker, it is a pure expression of this grape from this place. It's calcareous soils. It's the Paraje Altamira location. Zuccardi family are very old and well established there. The grandfather, they were developers first, land developers. So the grandfather actually brought some of the most modern irrigation systems into the valley back in the day before they started tending vineyards. And they do olive groves too. So they do olive oil and they do wine. And to this day, they will still bring the workers to the edge of the desert where that irrigation stops and kind of show them that delineation. They're like, this is why life is what it is in this valley, is because of the irrigation. And just so you remember, that's what it was before out there. So this is what your life is here because of this agriculture, because of the development, because of what we do here. So they planted their first vineyards in 1963. And then the concrete aging on this Malbec. And this one is a 2021, which I think was an exceptionally good year for them, because I've seen the feedback from both 2020 and 2022. And a lot of people are like, yeah, they're good, but the 2021, holy shit. They didn't do anything differently either. It's just the vintage variation. It's just what nature gave them that year. But this was I drank it all last week. So this is an empty bottle. Cause I opened it to prepare. We were supposed to record this last week. So I'm like, sorry. I'm finishing that. I can't, it's not going to last till next week. So it's gone. But I mean, I bought this for $30, from K&L Wines here in LA. And, you can find it. It does retail sometimes as high as 45. I've seen out there, like between 35 to 45, but generally some places will do 30 to 35. And for that price, this is an freaking insane bottle of wine. It's really good. The tannins are there, but they're very silky. They're very sexy in that way. Like, just, you've got that in the same way, that sultriness of the music here, that you have this incredible acidity. I mean, you're slurping it back up in between every sip. It's like you've got that sparkle. You've got it keeps the wine feeling as dark, and it is dark purple. It's crazy dark purple. And yet there is something. It's got this ruby rim, though, from that acidity. It's got this red tinge to it, and it just it tastes so light on its feet. You get this sort of like, you've got the black currants and blackberry and all that kind of fun, dark, deep purple fruit, but then also this like savoriness, this little bit of lavender, these like green herbs on it. And it just makes it, it's festive. It is a festival in a glass. And I think when I found that there was a concrete aged Malbec that I could go for in this way, I had to try that. And yeah, I listened to the whole album while drinking this bottle, and I'm like, yes, this is the way to go. I do think you need something a little spry, something a little springy, no matter what you do with this album, because of its energy. So yeah, I went with Malbec, but I think the concrete age takes it that next level to match what's going on.
Good choice.
I love that you both chose the Malbec, and that was definitely a contender. But I had to go for a white, because you know what? I always listen to this album, I feel like I want to be in a courtyard somewhere outside. So for me, I need it, you know,
I
just
needed
Verde, that white wine.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think all of the wines pair perfectly. I think it's what mood you're in.
That's right.
Because I think, you know, if you want to go a little darker and, you know, get part of that like sultry, darker dissonance, a flavorful, spicy red. But then, like, if you want to bring it a little lighter, this was
and I think
fantastic.
the album covers just about every note you could imagine, honestly.
Totally,
because we have so many different genres and styles. Infused in it, so.
I was going to say, for me, the electronic side too gives a little heaviness. It gives that weight of the beat, and and so I think that's why I veered towards red in the ultimate end. Is I wanted that extra weight. Not to say you can't get weight in a white. It's just easier to find that weight.
It's interesting. It's interesting you said that, because that's why I went with one that had a Loureiro that has been aged and then sat on its lees. So you have that complexity that if I just had a regular Loureiro, it wouldn't have paired really at all. So I love that.
Would have been nice, but not really.
It would have been, totally, but it would not have gone. It wouldn't, it didn't. It wouldn't have the body. This one has a little more body. It's more like a medium minus, but you know, you have that viscosity. It's got a little oily minerality. So it's not just, all right, this is a basic white wine.
It's not just a pleasant white. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Fantastic.
All right, guys.
Good stuff.
Well, this has been, awesome. Thank you so much. This has been Kate Reuschel. Kate, we know survivesonwine.substack.com. Anywhere else people can follow you or find you?
You can follow me on Instagram at survivesonwine. I try to be active, but Substack is where I really am. So that's a good place to find me.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It was nice. Thank you guys so much for this. This was a blast.
Thank you for joining us. This is a weird little corner of the world, and we
I love it.
All right. Thank you for listening, everybody. Once again, this has been Wine And. We will be back next week for another wine and entertainment pairing for your entertainment. Bye-bye for now.
Ciao, guys.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.